So the meeting is being recorded. And again, like I said, this is for today marks the beginning of our revision classes. We have finished everything on Monday, and as of today, we will have a series of revision. I think we have enough time to kind of go over all the material. Let me first of all tell you about the final exam in terms of the content and in terms of the kinds of questions and the format and everything in between. First of all, the final exam timetable is out. Have you noticed that? Did you go to the website and check when the final
Yes.
exam is? So when is the final exam? I'm asking.
I haven't noted the date yet. I just looked.
Okay, fine. Can we ask somebody to go now and check, download the timetable and share the day and date with us? Mariam, can you do that?
I'm already doing that.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's the final exam that we're talking about, and then after we finish with those final exam details, we'll start our revision class. Today, inshallah, I intend to cover um, the background to the Renaissance, and I'm going to also address myself to Othello and possibly the Duchess of Malfi. Typically, final exams are very comprehensive in their nature, and by comprehensive, I mean that they cover all the aspects of uh, um, the syllabus, which means that nothing is or will be left out. So the final exam in A230A and A230B is very comprehensive. Whatever we have taken, we are revisiting. Of course, the treatment is going to be different. It's going to be more perhaps encompassing. It's going to be more um profound, given the fact that it's the final exam, not the midterm. I think Mariam has something to share with us. Yeah, Mariam.
Yeah, I just figured out it's 14th of May
Okay, May 14,
from 9 a.m. 9:30 a.m.
9:30 a.m. So it's May 14th, right? 1/4,
Yeah.
right? No, which means that we still have a lot of time to comfortably finish everything, to comfortably revisit everything. So this is what we intend to do. So whoever was not paying attention can start from now, and he or she yani stands to achieve. I mean, we still have time to do a lot of things. I mean, time is on our side this time around. So we're not tight in terms of time, but that's why we still have a chance to cover everything one more time. Like I said, I'll talk a bit about the final exam in terms of format, in terms of my expectations, and then we move on to the revision part that I promised you. So, as far as the content is concerned, like I said, final exams in A230As and A230Bs are normally comprehensive, which means that everything is with us. The things that we have done in the midterm and before the midterm, and the things that we have done after the midterm, which leaves us with what? Which leaves us with the background to the Renaissance, and then the Renaissance itself, the Elizabethan age, the background to the Elizabethan age, the context of the Elizabethan age in terms of ideas and ideologies, and then representative plays from the Elizabethan age, where, if you still remember, we did Othello, and then Othello itself. And then we move on to the Jacobean age, which is very close to, in terms of proximity, in terms of time, it's very close to the Elizabethan age, and whatever ideas and ideologies in the Elizabethan age, they would apply, in other words, to the Jacobean age. And then we have a representative play, which is the Duchess of Malfi. And then after that, we go to the 18th century. And again, we introduced you, and we're likely to introduce you again to the climate of ideas at the time. Remember the dominant philosophies at the time, the philosophy and the feeling of optimism that was kind of overriding everything. And we'll talk about the philosophers that kind of promoted this kind of tendency among people and the reasons for that. And then we have a representative play novella, which is Candide, if you still remember. We'll talk about Candide and its different themes and ideas, the techniques used, the philosophy of Voltaire himself, and what kind of philosopher was he empirical uh, or uh, kind of intellectual, favoring what abstract ideas over whatever is sensory, or the other way around. We'll talk about that. And then Candide is the representation and how far uh, it reflects the age, whether it reflects the age, showing the optimism and promoting it, or perhaps showing that optimism is or shouldn't be there given what happened during the time and prior and after, different kinds of evil, moral evil and natural evil, and all those kinds of. And then when we're done with Candide, we'll move to the early 19th century, where we have Romanticism and Romantic poetry. We're limiting ourselves to Romantic poetry this time around. In previous semesters, we used to also have a Romantic novel. This time around, we're doing only and exclusively Romantic poetry, and the focus is on two major poets. One of them belongs to what we call first generation Romantic poetry, and the other belongs to what we call the second generation Romantic poetry. When we finish with them, that would be the end of it. Again, remember, this is revision, which means that we normally go over things not as exhaustively as we would like to, or not as exhaustively uh, um, as we did when we first approached those kinds of things. Remember, it's a revision class, not uh, um, the usual kind of class where you have to, cover every single item. So if there are gaps, of course, the gaps are or have to do with the idea that these are revision classes, not full-fledged classes. If you want a comprehensive treatment of the material, you are invited, of course, to go and check the recordings of those classes. So this is how we're going to handle things. Obviously, I didn't talk about the format of the exam. I spoke about the content. Let me address the format. So you normally have two parts or two sections in the final exam. You have the short answer section, and you have the essay or long essay section. In the short answer section, you normally have like um, four choices, and you're supposed to attempt three. These are short answers, definitions, movements, certain aspects in certain plays, and of course, you're meant or you're asked to kind of unpack the concepts if they are concepts, talk about the ideas if they are ideas, certain aspects from certain works. Again, these are short answers, which means that you're not supposed to attempt a full-fledged essay writing them, which means that you shouldn't be spending like 2 pages or 3 pages on them. No, that would turn them into long answers, which is something that we don't want at this point in time, because this is this is short answers. The designation of this part is that it is short answers. Again, what do I mean by short answer? Should people write like a paragraph? No, a paragraph wouldn't do the material justice. We normally ask for like half a page or so. Again, what are our expectations? Whether we're talking about short answers or long essays, comprehensiveness, which means that you need to kind of address all the aspects of the questions. Clarity, you need to be clear about what you're writing. You don't confuse yourself and others. You don't contradict yourself. And relevance. Relevance means that you need to stick to the points. You don't answer in a generic way, and you don't add whatever is not needed, and you ask your teacher to choose the best answer. No, you're not testing us, mind you. So these are the three principles on which or against which we kind of assess you. So comprehensiveness, clarity, and relevance. And so this is the short answer part, and then we move to the long essay questions part, where you normally have three questions and you're supposed to answer two of them. So which means that you're going to write two long essays. One of them is possibly a close reading, and close reading means that we're going to give you a passage or an extract from a play, for example, and we ask you to fully engage with it and attempt an essay on it. Again, in the long answer or the long essay questions, you normally have prompts. We give you a prompt, which means a statement, and we ask you to discuss it in an essay format, or we give you a close reading and we ask you to also comment on it. So the close reading part is more or less like a prompt in disguise. It's a prompt. You read the extract very well, you extract the main ideas, and you develop them into an essay. So this is how it should go, and this is how it should look. Do you have any questions about the final exam in terms of content, in terms of format, before we proceed?
Are we gonna be given a poem to analyze, or probably no, just a part of a play?
Normally, it's part of a play or part of a novella. Remember, you had a novella. It can be from
Yeah.
Candide, for example. I haven't seen poems being analyzed, but it's a possibility. I mean, you never know. Questions don't get repeated, and you're likely to get a stanza, and you may be asked to attempt to kind of read it closely. So the possibility is there, yeah, Mary, but it's not a big one.
Okay.
Um, okay. Anybody else before we move on? Right. Now let's move on to the first part of our revision. And again, we're going to revisit what we have done way back. And we're um, going to start in a chronological way, which means that we're going to start from the past and go up until we reach the Romantics and the different Romantic poets. So we're starting with Othello and even prior. We were starting with the background. We're going to furnish the background uh, um, that perhaps gave inspiration to people like Othello and Webster to write what they wrote. So again, remember when we started, we said that when we talk about the context or the background to the Elizabethan age, which is obviously a part of the big umbrella that we call the Renaissance, we should start even earlier. And we went all the way back to the medieval period, the Middle Ages. We're talking about the time from perhaps the late 12th and early 13th century up to the 16th and the 17th century. So the medieval period has its own features and characteristics, and it left its impact on the Elizabethan age, on the Renaissance, and even beyond. So what was characteristic about the medieval period was the fact that the church was dominant, was the fact that it was a feudal system where you have lords, you have serfs, and people working the land, and they are in the majority, and you have injustice being meted out against the majority. So people were poor, the church was dominating, people had no access to education, so they were, for the most part, illiterate. The focus was on religion, on teaching morals. And when you teach morals to people who are illiterate, you need to know how to reach out to them. Obviously, you wouldn't reach out to them through newspapers because none existed. You wouldn't reach out them through social media because none existed. You reached out to them through the theater. Uh, so you write very simplistic plays in which you have characters who dress and embody different abstract ideas. The idea of good, the idea of evil, the idea of greed, um, avarice, hatred, envy. What Christians normally refer to as the seven deadly sins. So those seven deadly sins are normally represented by human beings on the stage, and they compete amongst each other. Of course, you on the other side you have goodness and the forces of good, and you have this interplay between the good and the bad, and of course towards the end whatever is good emerges victorious. So the message is clear. You should be following whatever is good, whatever is virtuous, and you should be shunning and avoiding whatever is bad and evil. So this was the dominating sentiment, if you like, during the time. And in order to give expression to these ideas with this reformatory and educational uh, um, you know, aim and goal in mind, you have two kinds of plays that showcase those kinds of features. Those two kinds of plays were called mystery plays and morality plays, where characters are flat characters. They don't develop, they don't have a capacity for change. They are not as complex as the plays that we have seen with Shakespeare, with Webster, and with others. So this was the climate of ideas during the medieval period. So the focus was on religion, the focus was on teaching people morals through mystery and morality plays. And of course, everything was interpreted in a theological, in a religious way. There was no room for science, there was no room for advancement, technological advancement. No, everything was restricted and limited to religion. So that's why people were not very educated, where people were illiterate for the most part. And of course, the time was full of, um, you know, fallacies about science, um, um, there was no um, there was no interest in the development of ideas and progress in science. And then we move on until we reach perhaps the 14th century, where we'll have what we call the Renaissance. And Renaissance is a period in time where people started to kind of say we need to give other sources of knowledge a chance. Religion and its knowledge is good and everything, but obviously there is more to life than just that. We need to experiment. We need to be more, perhaps, scientifically inclined. We need to move beyond our borders and explore other worlds and other parts of the world. We need to trade with other nations. And this is exactly what they did. They started to open up. They started to be more tolerant towards ideas that are not inspired by and based on religion. Science started to flourish. Arts that are not based on religion started to also flourish. And in order to find inspiration and material for that, they kind of skipped the medieval period for inspiration and went all the way to the Greeks and the Romans. That's why we call this period Renaissance. And Renaissance, for those who speak French, means rebirth, revival of interest. So, what is it that they were trying to revive interest in? It was the Greek and the Roman, um, you know, um, arts and sciences. Um, so they went all the way to the Greeks and they got their inspiration from the Greeks and their philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, um, Socrates, and other philosophers. They also had kind of interest in the sciences of the time. Aristotle, of course, was like a physicist or a physical philosopher, where he focuses on categorizing objects. He was primarily a natural philosopher, if you like, where he focused on nature rather than on the human being and the inner recesses of the soul and psychology of man, like Socrates did. And of course, between them, we have Plato, who was an intellectual philosopher, where the mind meant a lot for him. So this was the inspiration that they leaned back on, and I'm talking about people in the Renaissance period. They started to write books, to experiment, to be more open to empirical science, where you don't depend on your feelings and emotions, you don't depend on your intellect and full stop. You also depend on your senses in making sense of the world. So this was the Renaissance, where there was a shift from God to humans. That's why this period is also called humanism. So where there was this absolute belief in the capabilities of human beings, human potential. According to them, if human beings are given the opportunity, they can do the impossible, they can work wonders. And this is exactly what they did. They started to experiment, they start to invent things, they started to explore other continents. So this was the time. Again, Renaissance was encompassing and it was all over the place in Europe. It is true that it started in Italy, but obviously it didn't stop there. It moved to other countries and other nations like the English, the German, the French. And for obvious reasons, we're focusing on the English because we're English major students. So, corresponding to the Renaissance and working under its parameters and principles would be the Elizabethan age. This was the time of Queen Elizabeth I. She was, kind of a patron of the sciences and arts. She was open-minded. She encouraged people to explore, to create, to travel beyond their borders, and the end result was fantastic. You have in the arts, for example, you have people like Shakespeare, the high and the mighty Shakespeare. In the sciences, you would have philosophers of science, you have scientists. Uh, um, Remember, this time was if it was not exactly during Queen Elizabeth the First age, it was around it. We had people like Newton, uh, um, and of course other natural philosophers. During the Elizabethan age, because of the flourishing of science, because the climate of ideas, the climate was favorable, people could invent, could create. Um, Again, as a sign of encouragement, you have this patronage system during the time where you would have, you know, playwrights and artists being supported financially by, people in high places. They would fund their artistic projects. They would fund um, their plays, and this is exactly what happened with William Shakespeare. He depended on this patronage system to kind of stage his plays. Otherwise, it could have been very expensive for him. So the patronage system was there, and artists and playwrights kind of benefited from it. In terms of ideas, and again, we're talking about the Elizabethan age, which is part of the Renaissance. And obviously, the ideas across Europe was almost the same when we talk about social norms, when we talk about political philosophy and political theory. If we talk about politics, and because of the fact that most of Europe was, monarchies, and it was this royal systems in place, there was this idea that the king or the queen is divinely appointed. They had this theory, political theory, political which um, says that kings are God's representative on earth, and they should be dealt with as such, which means that you cannot depose them, you cannot, um, and they, of course, they rule for life, and they even in kind of leave the throne as a legacy for their offspring. So this theory was called the divine rights of kings. Um, and around this theory, a lot of things were built. The idea of hierarchy, for example. Hierarchy means that we have levels and layers in society, and people are born into one of these layers, and then it's by sheer accident, of course, that you're born in a poor layer, in a high layer. So there is no way you can change your level, or so once you're born into a certain level, you have to stick to this level, and there was no room for social mobility, which is something that we are lucky to have now. You can be poor, but you can make it through your diligence and hard work, and you kind of climb the social ladder, and you become something in the future. During the time, they didn't have any of that. If you're born poor, you have to stay poor. If you're born rich or a part of a royal family, you have to stay there. And obviously, there was no room for people from the different layers and from the different levels to reach out, which means that if you're poor, or if you're low class, you cannot reach out to people in high places or in high class unless you're working for them, you're serving them. If you're high on the hierarchy, you shouldn't reach out to people who are under you unless you kind of enslave them, unless you employ them. So this was the hierarchy, and the hierarchy had different corresponding hierarchies. You have a social hierarchy where on top you have the king or the queen, and at the bottom you have the masses or people who are uh, poor. You have a corresponding hierarchy when it comes to race. It's a hierarchy of race or color, where Caucasians or white people are on top and black people are at the bottom. Um, so what happens if you, for some reason, try to reach out? You're poor, for example, and you're trying to reach out to people in high places. Obviously, as a slave or as an employee, that's fine. But what happens if two people fall in love with each other? Somebody from a high place and somebody from a lower bracket of society. This is not acceptable. Again, and it's not without its dire consequences. What happens if you're black and you're trying to reach out to people who are white? Obviously, nothing is wrong with that if you work for them, if you're being enslaved by them. But what happens if a black guy falls in love with a white girl and they agree? No, society does not agree. And if they insist, there are dire consequences, as we have seen. So this was the climate of ideas. There are established ideas. There is an established order that you have to honor and respect. Again, its manifestations have to do with this hierarchy of color, this hierarchy of race, and social hierarchies. Again, what we are presented with in the two plays that represent the age, what we're represented with is this idea of those who pose a challenge to the existing orthodoxies and the existing hierarchies. Um, so you have people who are obviously challenging those hierarchies and disrupting or the existing orders and hierarchy, whether they are of color, of race, uh, and obviously when they do that, they don't get away with it, which means that they get penalized and punished at the end, which seems to be a message that the writer is trying to get across to the people of the time. So you need to think twice before you reach out to people from other levels. Um, and you need to think twice before you fall in love with somebody who does not belong to your race or your class or rank. What happens if you do that? You both will be punished, and you will be punished severely, and you'll even get killed. Again, sending a signal, sending a message to people out there that this is not acceptable and will not be tolerated under any circumstances. And this is what we have seen with Othello, and this is what we have seen with the Duchess of Malfi. So this was the ideas that inspired plays like Othello. Let's talk about Othello for a minute. So how much do you still remember about Othello? Yeah, Mariam, go ahead.
It's about a black guy who is actually originally from Africa. He's a Moor, and he lives in Venice. And during his lifetime, he rose to a higher position to the point where he became like a general, a military respectable general. And he has someone who works for him named Iago. He's jealous of him because, oh, not him, Roderigo actually. He he fell in love with Desdemona, but her father rejected him, and Desdemona, instead of Roderigo, chose Othello secretly. So Roderigo is asking Iago to help him, like to get a revenge on him.
Yeah,
And
this is the
eventually
plot,
Iago,
right? Yeah, yeah, go
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the plot. And eventually
Mm,
Iago managed to make Othello believe that his later wife Desdemona is cheating on him with Cassio, whom he appointed instead of Iago, which is another reason why Iago also hates Othello. And eventually, Desdemona lost her handkerchief, and Emilia, or Iago's wife, picked it up, and Iago used this to his advantage to make it believable that Desdemona is cheating on him, on Othello. And once Othello found out about this scheme, uh, how do you say, like he killed Desdemona, like what's it called? What he did with her with the pillow? I forgot what it's called.
I mean,
Slaughtered.
he strangled her,
Yeah,
right?
strangled her. Yeah,
Mm,
that's the word.
mm,
Strangled her
mm,
with the pillow.
mhm,
And eventually, when he found out that it was all a scheme, he committed suicide.
yeah. Again, it seems to be a wrong-headed love story. Obviously, there is nothing wrong with falling in love. There is nothing wrong with eventually and consequently getting married to the one who with the one you love. The problem is that you don't live on an island. You're not isolated. You live in a society, and obviously you have to uh, play by the playbook of this society. And what does the playbook say? It says very categorically that we don't have inter-race marriages, we don't have inter-caste marriages, we don't have interfaith marriages. If you're white, you keep to your white people. If you want to marry and fall in love, you fall in love with a white girl from within your own race and color. If you're black, it's the same thing. You get married and fall in love with somebody from within your color and race. And again, if you don't do that, if you kind of violate those norms, you have yourself to blame eventually. Again, it doesn't go in this very straightforward manner. You have to have a play, um, because people don't like preaching. If you tell people do this and don't do that, they are not likely to kind of follow or obey. So you have to give messaging that is indirect. And this is exactly what plays are all about. They give you a plot, they give you a scenario, and things seems to be running in a logical way. Motivations are convincing and everything between, but the messages are there at the end. So um, if it's like you have a number of messages to get across to people, you also have to choose a template or a format to put your characters in, to weave your stories around. And the form of choice and the dramatic template of choice during the time was tragedy. That's why we call it a tragedy. So it's a tragedy in both senses. A tragedy in the sense that it has a lot of agony and suffering, and it is also a tragedy from a technical point of view, where we have the trajectory of a tragedy in its Greek sense. If you're familiar with Greek tragedies, you have this very well-known trajectory. You start off um, in very fortunate circumstances, where you have a main character who is exceptional, and everything, but he or she has a flaw, weakness in his or in her character, and that flaw or weakness kind of prompts him or her to commit a number of errors, to perhaps fall into the trap of not assessing something in the right way, and that would lead to errors and mistakes, and some of those errors and mistakes are fatal. And towards the end, what happens? Those errors lead to the downfall of this kind of character, and the downfall is very spectacular and very tragic, ending or resulting in the death of this character. So this is the trajectory of any tragedy, and it applies very much to Othello, where you have Othello, the character. He is exceptional. He is well loved by everyone. He is obviously very respected and valued because of his services for the Venetian society, being a soldier and a leader. Um, and so everything seems to be going very well for him until he decides, not decided, it just happened that he fell in love with this Demona who does not belong to his race. She is white and he is black. And this is where the complications started. So the Venetian society may love and value him, but when it comes to him falling in love with a white girl, this is something that they didn't condone or accept. And what will be the consequences? It's going to be very dire. Agents of society like Iago and Rigo will be put in his way. They are going to set traps, especially Iago. They are going to set traps for him, and he will fall into those traps. He's going to be uh, convinced that his wife is kind of cheating on him, and he wouldn't scrutinize this kind of charge. He is going to perhaps accept it, and he will act on those feelings of jealousy, those feelings of anger and frustration. And the next thing you know is that he will kill her. And after he kills her, he realizes that she is pure and innocent. And in order to kind of atone for his sin, and is in order uh, uh, يعني يعني for him to cleanse himself, he commits suicide and kills himself. So again, killing himself and killing his wife prior are obviously meant as messages that people like Shakespeare are sending to the rest of society. It's as if they are telling them, you need to think twice uh, before thinking of getting married to somebody from another caste, from another class, from another religion, from another race. Again, and it's because it's a tragedy, you normally have those feelings of pity and fear coming out, and you feel pity for the characters because they are human beings like us, and we're likely to fall into the same trap. You feel fearful because yeah, falling into the same trap can result in our death. Um, so, so this is how the play goes. Again, it's a play, very artistic, but it is also a social document, a political one. It tells people to look deeply and see what is happening and reflect on it and think twice. When they leave the stage, their negative energies are all spent, and this is what we call catharsis. So catharsis is about the purgation and the cleansing of all those unnecessary feelings that we have. They don't have to be pity and fear, but they can be any excessive feelings that you have. So this is Othello. Again, the main idea is this idea of tragedy, and how it goes. It's different stages of development, ending in or with the tragic downfall of Othello. You also have other themes and ideas, like I said, the idea of the um hierarchies, the idea of established order, and how you have to kind of stick to this kind of order. You shouldn't challenge it, and obviously, if you challenge it, there will be consequences. Um, and so this is how things develop, and this is how things go. Again, um, you would have, I wouldn't say minor ideas, but are ideas that run parallel that also support the mainstream. The mainstream is obviously the idea that we are in the spectacle of a tragic hero, somebody who's exceptional, and he gets unfortunate at one point, and things turn nasty and bad, and we see what happens to him. So along this path, you have a number of parallel paths having to do with the ideas that were rampant during the time. One of them would be how people perceived women during the time, and there was, of course, a great deal of misogyny. Misogyny is women hating. There was a great deal of misogyny. Women were taken for granted. They were never consulted about what kind of guy they would choose for a lover and for a husband. Women were thought very little of. Then there were lots of kind of fallacies and myths about their sexuality. The bottom line would be that they were treated very badly. So we have that. We have this theme that women are not portrayed in the best of manners in uh, in the play, which is obviously a reflection of the male-dominated ideas of the time. Men, of course, were all in all, they were domineering, and women were subservient or were perceived as subservient. This is one of the main themes and ideas where women characters are, or women in general, were not given their due. A reflection of that would be the character of Desdemona, and other female characters would be also uh, um, Emilia, the wife of Iago. Um, it is true that Desdemona is presented at the beginning as valiant, as somebody who is ready to challenge her traditions and her family and her father and elope with and get married to the one she has chosen, a black individual. But she didn't, over time, she wouldn't sustain this zeal. Over time, she's going to lose heart. It's not that she stopped loving Othello, no, but she wouldn't fight for her rights as tenaciously and as fiercely as she used to do at the very beginning. Over time, she becomes the victim of her own love, which means she becomes the victim of her own man. Uh, Othello is going to feel jealous. He's going to be to to be he's going to fall into the trap of set for him by Iago, that she is not faithful, and there is an affair with Cassio. He doesn't check that. He doesn't double check. And when he is perhaps getting ready to kind of kill her, and she have knows that she submits. She tells Emilia that she's ready for anything, and remember the Welu. Was it what did we call this scene? Welu, I think, where she is kind of telling Emilia the story of her mother's maid, who happens to be also from Africa and black, and how her lover went mad and abandoned her. And so, again, um, at the end of the play, Desdemona is not as assertive as she was. And it's very ironically, it is Emilia who is very assertive, who is defending women and their rights, who is telling society, male as it is, that if women make mistakes, it's simply because they are human beings like men. They are prone to commit errors, and they are also pushed to make those errors because of women and women treatment. So she was advocating for equal rights and equal treatment. Again, I'm saying that this is one of the ideas that we're likely to find when we talk about Othello, that would run parallel to themes as big as the tragic fall of Othello and Desdemona. Another very important theme would be the idea of whether Othello is responsible for what happened to him, or is it um, because of external circumstances, like Iago conspiring against him. And this is one of the big ideas, and you have scholars and critics being polarized over it. We have people who believe that Othello is self-delusional and that Othello is self-dramatizing. He puts himself in situations where he can extract our admiration, and if he cannot secure our admiration, he would make sure that he secures our pity and sympathy. So he is open to all kinds of possibilities to secure those kinds of feelings. And sometimes he does that obviously knowingly, which would make him as responsible as it gets when it comes to what happened to him. You have other people who believe that he was a victim of circumstance and that he is noble and as noble as it gets. And it's only that he was the victim of circumstances, and those circumstances can be material, can be his color, the antagonism of our society, and it can be people like Iago who are envious, who are kind of devilish and cunning and everything in between. Let's have a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we can expand on these ideas, inshallah. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, doctor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Victor.
Hi. Are we all back? Please raise your hands. Hmm. How about Mariam? Are you here? Mariam?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So we're all here, huh? Okay. So remember before the break, it was all about Othello. It's different themes and ideas. And again, those themes and ideas reflect the climate of ideas of the time. No play is created out of thin air. It is rooted in and inspired by the ideas and ideologies of its time. And this is very much so in Othello. Remember, we spoke about um, misogyny, women hating, the stereotypical attitudes towards women as one of the themes. We also spoke about the idea of hierarchy or hierarchies and the established order and how you shouldn't be disrupting this hierarchy or established order by reaching out to people from other classes or races or colors rather. Again, one of the ideas would be the idea of how much the play is a tragedy in the Greek sense, a tragedy in the Shakespearean sense, where we're talking about a Christian society, where obviously God is benevolent and wouldn't do any harm to human beings. It's only that human beings, when their free will, do harm to themselves. Um, Again, among the ideas that we have in the play would be who is responsible? Who is responsible for the downfall, the tragic downfall of Othello and Desdemona? Is it Othello himself, or is it external forces and forces beyond his control? I mean, the idea of forces beyond his control would lead us to the idea of a universe that is not very amiable, not very uh, um, um, tolerant towards human beings. And obviously, who is the creator of the universe? It's God. So if you're saying that it's forces beyond his control, we're talking about the idea of fate and that he is fated and predetermined, which means that we're removing any kind of responsibility. We wouldn't, in this sense, we're saying that he is more sinning. He is more sinned against than sinning, which lots of people find not very convincing. They believe that he has willed everything. It's through his willpower that we have seen what we have seen. It is him and his delusional nature that brought about all those kinds of suffering. And if there was a help from outside, it wouldn't compare to the amount of responsibility that he should claim for for what happened. Again, we said that this has taken the shape of a debate between two sets of scholars, those who believe that he is responsible. On top of them would be people like T.S. Eliot and F.R. Leaves, and people who believe that he is the victim of circumstance and external forces, and on top of them would be people like Wilson Knight, um, and I don't remember the other name. So again, you have this debate, and you, as a thinking individual, should be subscribing to one of these two schools. I don't know where you stand on that. You think that he is responsible, he could have avoided all of that, or you think that he was a victim of circumstance and it was all the doing or the undoing, for that matter, of Iago. So let me ask you, where do you stand, Mariam?
For me personally, I think it's a mix of both. Both Iago and Othello are responsible. Iago, as we all know, it's his plot, like he made this scheme to make Othello fall. From the other hand, it's Othello's responsibility also because he didn't do any research, like he didn't do any effort uh, to find out the details about this whole drama, to ask Desdemona herself, like to do any effort to find out if it's true or not. He just jumped into conclusion directly, which also led to his downfall.
So if in terms of percentage, so you give him which percentage? I mean, you're obviously you're implying that it's a 50-50 kind of responsibility.
Yes,
Are you saying
and
that it's a 50-50, or perhaps, yeah, I would say, if you ask me, I would say that 60 or 70% would go for Othello. I would believe that he's 60 or 70% responsible, and I would leave the remaining 30% for external forces and for people like Ian. So if in terms of percentage, what is your percentage?
I think, yeah, it's 50-50. And from the other hand, I forgot to mention that Othello is not used to women's company, like as we know that he mostly spent his time among men, among military and places where women aren't usually involved. Maybe this is another reason why he jumped into such quick conclusions.
Yeah, again,
But
it's
still,
the
that doesn't,
misogyny of society.
yeah, it still
Society is
doesn't justify his action.
misogynistic. They believe, they normally believe the worst in women. Um, yeah, but yeah, yeah. This is external, right? This is what you're trying to say. That it's an external force, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, circumstances surrounding him. Uh, okay. And can we have other people? What do you think, guys? Do you think that Othello is delusional about himself and his abilities, and uh, is he responsible, or are other people responsible for his downfall? Okay, so think about it, and let's talk about it later. Another very important idea, again, and it would also contribute to the downfall, is the idea of insecurities. The fact that Othello is insecure when you're not comfortable in your skin, like the idiom goes, which means that you have complexes that you cannot overcome. And we said that some of those insecurities are things that he himself internalized. Um, for all the confidence that he inspires. Remember when you see him for the first time, using this very elevated kind of language, verging on the poetic. See, so insecurities. What are those insecurities that he had and that would perhaps contribute to the downfall eventually? Okay, Mariam.
There are many. One of them is, as I already mentioned, is his expecting the worst from women because he's not used to their company. Another crucial point of his insecurities is the fact that no matter how in what high position he rose for his service, for his all hard work, he believes that the Venetian society will still see him as a foreigner, as an outsider, because he's black, because he's not originally Venetians or let alone white, because he's still seen as a foreigner, someone who doesn't belong to the
Mm,
society, cannot
mm.
marry a white woman. That's his more important insecurity, more than the first one, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, the idea that no matter how hard he tries, he's still a foreigner. No matter how hard he tries, no matter how many achievements he makes, he's still perceived as a foreigner, somebody who does not belong because of his color and sometimes because of his faith. I mean, it seems that he is a converted Christian, but nobody obviously believes in that. Um, so this is an insecurity that he feels, and also the insecurity of perhaps age. Remember that he is perhaps twice her age, and again he would keep to himself. I don't know. I'm only imagining that he can refrain to himself and keep asking himself, why me? Why did she choose me and I'm twice as old? What did she find in me? And I mean, he wouldn't believe himself that she fell in love with him. That would be easy later for people to kind of play on that he is older. Again, he is black and she's white. And again, this level of confidence that we have, I mean, people who are dark are not I mean, they are obviously now proud of their darkness and they don't care. But obviously, you talk about the 16th and the 17th century, being black was kind of a disgrace of a sort. I mean, white majority would make you feel as such. So that could also play a part. Again, this idea that he's a soldier primarily, and he's not given to life in civil society where you have to negotiate your way, you have to talk and sweet talk people in order to have uh, things done and accomplished. He's not into that. He is a man of the sword. He doesn't talk much. He takes action, and obviously civility and civil life is not like that. You have to be a good communicator. You have to know how to deal with people. You need to know how to give and take. So these are all things that he knows very well. Again, being aware of them is not equal to practicing them. So these are all insecurities that he felt, that he lived by, and they may have contributed to the irrational decisions that he has taken. And one of them would be to kill this woman once and for all. So you would think of those insecurities as external forces, as circumstance that would prompt him to do it. what he did. Um, so again, in your assessment of him, and if you believe that he is a victim of circumstance, that he is more sinned against than sinning, you need to consider these factors and this package of insecurities that he had. So, what else about Othello in terms of ideas and in terms of themes? Um, what do you think? What else did we talk about? Um, of course, you know the difference, what um, Eliot and Leaves said about him on the one hand, what Wilson Knight and the other guy said about him. Uh, again, yeah, Mariam, go ahead.
I forgot which one exactly, what scholar, but one of them said that Othello is very self-dramatizing, like he's putting himself in these positions in order to uh, get attention from people, to receive sympathy from others, something like that.
Yeah. This was T.S. Eliot, and this was F.R. Leaves. Um, while the other group would focus more on him being noble, being highly elevated, and being a man who is given to music. Remember the musicality, his
Yeah, the
musicality and
Othello
his
music.
speeches. Yes. Um, so again, this is a very important idea. The idea that critics are polarized over what kind of person Othello is and whether he is to blame for what happened, or perhaps we need to blame Iago for everything. Um, and I think these are all the themes that at least come to my mind when I think of Othello. There may be more, um, but perhaps they are not as important. You need to focus on those ideas. You need to develop them. You need to provide examples for them. Um, you need to kind of read more about what happened, and you need to also read critical material about these things. Do you have any questions about Othello before we kind of shift gears and move to the other play? I'll give you a couple of minutes to think. Scratch your heads and come up with ideas. Okay. Okay. Any ideas, everyone?
Okay.
No, all clear.
Or clear? Nice. Good. Right. Should we proceed and start another play, or should we keep this to perhaps? I would like you to come again. Is it tomorrow that we're having? Yeah, tomorrow with the other class. Can you come tomorrow? Can you attend
إن شاء
tomorrow?
إن
You
شاء
mean the
الله
What?
دكتور.
meeting?
Hmm? Eh?
Come tomorrow for what? You mean the meeting for the debates?
No, 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 no. I'm talking about a class that I'm having for A230A with the other class at 12 tomorrow.
Oh,
إن شاء الله دكتور I'm ready.
طيب, do you have the link to the other class?
Okay.
Do you have it? I'm asking. But I'll
I
send you
don't
an
have
email.
it.
So check your email. I'll send you an email and the two groups, and I would like you to attend tomorrow. We'll try to kind of talk more about that and move on to the other play. Yeah, somebody's raising. Yeah, Mariam, go ahead.
But if I'm not mistaken, we have tomorrow at 12 p.m. We have for the debates, the preparations,
Did I say
or the time
12?
has been.
I don't
Yeah, on
believe we
Monday.
said 12. Are you sure 12 or 5? I think we said 5. ولا ايه يا مريم؟
Let me check.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the date, but I hope
Mm.
it's 5 p.m.
I think it's at 5 p.m. Right. Anyway, so we're meeting tomorrow, 8:30 and we're doing the rest of Othello, and we will move to the Duchess of Malfi. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah. Now, have we finished the whole course? Like book
Yes, we
two?
did.
Oh,
Yes.
so for book two, we're only having two poets, Percy Shelley and Wordsworth, right? No more.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Remember, I gave you the podcasts that I made on the romantics. Did I do that?
I didn't receive them.
In fact, let me, yeah, just give me a second and I'll share them with you now. Okay. Can you check that? Are you all checking?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, this is a series of podcasts that cover all the romantic poets, and they are inspired by and based on our classes. These are recordings of my classes. So study them.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
They are very beautiful, and they are going to give you very beautiful insights. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Um,
much.
I have, I think I have a couple of podcasts on Candide, and I'm going to share them when we talk about Candide. I mean, the whole channel has all the recordings. If you go to the same channel, it's called Happy Learning, I think. This is mine, and it has all the recordings, our recordings and recordings of previous classes. Anyway, I'm going to stop on this note and with this item, and I'm expecting you tomorrow at 12. I'm going to send you an email tonight, and I'll give you the link. Thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow at
Thank
12,
you.
inshallah. You're welcome. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.